Hi, Suyash.
Hi, Anusha.
How are you?
Good, good, thank you. And you?
I'm great, thanks. Long time no see, man. Last time we met was the last event in 2019, which was 100 years ago.
Exactly,
Good
correct.
to see you. Good to see you virtually. It doesn't matter, but good to see you. So, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome back after lunch. I hope nobody's sleeping yet. Let's welcome Suyash Sumaru, who's going to speak to us today on the architecture of NFTs and DeFi. Suyash, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Anusha. Just checking if I need to share my screen for the presentation. Yeah, just give me a second. Actually, can't share. I can't share my screen for the presentation, so I will just start in the meantime that we sort this out. So just a quick introduction. I'm Suyash Sumaru. I'm the founder of CodeVigor, a software development company specialized in the development of blockchain and cryptocurrency applications. And I'm also the co-founder of Horizon Africa and the CTO of Loot NFT. So today, what we'll be talking about is DeFi. Okay, the architecture of NFTs and DeFi, and we're going to more of the technical approach of things. So we hear a lot about DeFi, or we hear a lot about NFTs, and we tend to learn everything in the same two concepts. Okay, when we talk about DeFi, so there's only one concept of DeFi. When we talk about NFTs, there's a single concept of NFTs. That's only partially true. There's so many things happening, and it's important to understand when we talk about DeFi, when we talk about decentralized finance, there are a lot of things that traditionally could come under the definition of DeFi, but it would also mean that there are certain things that are operating outside the, let's say, the basic definition of DeFi, but they still can be considered as decentralized finance. So I'm just checking if I can share now. No, still not able to share. If someone could just share my presentation in the meantime. Okay, so the agenda today is very straightforward. We'll talk about decentralized finance, so the different levels of decentralization, and NFTs. So the evolution of digital assets, and how NFTs and DeFi can actually work together and are actually working together. So let's start with a basic question: what is DeFi? I won't go into the introductory definition of what is decentralized finance. What we want to do is, oh, I can share my screen. So here it is. Perfect. So we are here. So what we're talking about, are going to talk about, is all the technical considerations. When we talk about DeFi, it's decentralized finance, obviously. But what we need to focus on is not finance. Finance has existed since a long time. What we need to focus on is decentralized. So the main question you need to ask is, what does it mean to have a decentralized finance? And the second question you need to ask is, how decentralized it is? Because there are different ways of creating a decentralized application. And before going into this bit, we need to understand that when we talk about DeFi, so it's a single term that we use for probably everything within the DeFi ecosystem. But what we need to understand is that DeFi consists of a lot of different projects, of course, and is based on technologies which have existed since some time now. So in the past, we had STOs, we had initial coin offering, ICOs, we had the we have the token technology. So for example, ERC20 and things like that. So decentralized finance is not something that started recently or out of nowhere. It's built on these technology. It's built on governance models that already existed in the past, and this is the evolution of mistakes that happened in the past. I think that a lot of you might remember that in at the very start of Ethereum, there was a big bug in one of the biggest projects at that time, which was called the DAO, and it was a governance system, and things like this help in making the whole ecosystem much more robust. And this is why now we have DeFi systems which are relatively more robust. It's just because it's built on these prior technologies, which have been, let's say, to a very great extent battle tested and are now, I would say, very quite robust and stable. So now let's go into some more, let's say, specific parts of DeFi. So we talk about decentralization, and an important question that needs to be asked is how decentralized a DeFi project is. When we talk about decentralization, the easy definition is a system where we don't have a central entity. Now, the thing is that you rarely have 100% decentralized system. I think it's very difficult to actually achieve that. So you have different levels, different degrees of decentralization. For example, you could have a DeFi project which is touted, which is marketed as a decentralized finance project, and it uses blockchain technology, but it doesn't mean that it's decentralized. It just means that some part of the project is using blockchain. Now, that is not necessarily a good or bad thing. It depends on the project itself, but it just means that you need to be aware of what's the level of decentralization in these projects, and this will affect the technical risks that we will talk a bit later. Next thing that we need to discuss about when we talk about DeFi is our smart contracts. So basically, at its very base, when we talk about how we can decentralize applications, they normally go with the use of smart contracts. Now, smart contracts are, I would say, standalone software that you run, and any standalone software like can have different implications. They can have bugs, they can have problems, and this will come again in the technical risk section. But it just means that DeFi uses basically smart contracts to make it work. Now, smart contracts can be thought of about standalone software that work together to create a process or to help define a certain type of products for people to, for example, invest or loan out cryptocurrencies, to do flash loans and things like that. But they all go through smart contracts. And the interesting thing is that a lot of previously unseen use of smart contracts have come to light. For example, flash loans, where smart contracts transactions are done within a single block, which is a very interesting use of how blocks are generated, and not considering the delay in creating these blocks, how these can be minimized to do flash loans and things like that. Now, a very, I would say, relevant thing about DeFi is technical risks. So or risks in general. So when we talk about decentralized finance, one of the things that come into play, of course, probably the first thing that comes into play is financial risk. Of course, any financial instrument, any financial product comes with the financial risk. What's the probability of me losing whatever I have invested, or what's the probability of me actually gaining any profits or returns on that. So this is not specific to decentralized finance. It applies to any financial product, and decentralized finance is no different in that sense. The second um, thing, the second type of risk that we can talk about is counterparty risk. So basically, counterparty risks are defined within the context of DeFi by how much a project is decentralized, meaning that a project like which is very decentralized will present relatively lower risks of someone actually stealing your money, freezing your funds, or you participating in a scam and things like that. So this is really dependent on how decentralized a project is. And finally, we have the technical risks. So we talk about smart contracts. Smart contracts are basically software or software components. And when we talk about software, we also always talk about bugs or security shortcomings, and there's always the risk of these smart contracts containing bugs and things like that. With time, it's becoming more and more stable, but for newer projects, for projects which create things from scratch, there's always the technical risk of actually, suffering from bugs and someone actually stealing funds and things like that. It's also very important to be able to mitigate these risks, and these come with more and more projects like this coming up and going into the ecosystem and actually people using. Now let's talk about NFTs. So basically NFTs, the way we see it, is kind of the next level of tokenization and ownership. And it's not something new, but the way it is being used is something very different. And let's actually go into the specifics. So, of course, NFTs are basically a tokenization technology. So you're tokenizing something unique, which is very different from tokenizing, I would say, money, for example. If we take the example of Bitcoin or Ethereum, they are tokens, yes, but they are interchangeable. That is, one Ethereum can be exchanged for another Ethereum, and it still retains the same value. We have concepts like colored coins and things like that, but from a technology perspective, they are very different. It's the same token. NFTs, so the tokens that I just mentioned are what we call fungible tokens. Now, NFTs, or basically non-fungible tokens, are still tokens, but they represent something very basically unique. A unique item is represented by an NFT. So it's basically this concept that applies for NFTs. And NFTs again use smart contracts. So the big difference between, I would say, NFTs and DeFi, like in terms of implementation, is that NFTs already have a well-established and it's very simple, let's say, list of smart contracts that can be used, and these smart contracts have been battle tested. They are relatively more simple than more complex projects, and so they are quite stable and robust. So this is the good thing about NFTs. And finally, we are talking about NFTs and DeFi. So again, DeFi encompasses a whole lot of different technologies, different software blocks like governance models, governance software, governance smart contracts, tokens, any kind of tokens, ERC20 tokens, and finally NFTs. And this is where things start to get interesting, because now NFTs are not used only as a tokenization technology, but also as a revenue generating technology. And this is what I listened to with great interest, what Ishant and Jailesh mentioned earlier. And this is what is actually happening. NFTs are not only representing assets, digital assets, or physical assets, but they are becoming a part of a much more complex system, which actually brings a lot of different advantages. So I'll end here, and thank you for all your time. So if you have any questions, you want to delve deeper into something more specific about NFTs or DeFi, feel free to go on my website. You can contact me from there, or my email is here. So and feel free, like you also have my phone number. Just feel free to ask me any questions. I'll be very happy to answer them. Okay, I'm good. Thank you again for your time, and thank you, Benito and Anusha, for having me here.
Thank you so much, Suyash. It's always a pleasure hearing you about the technical approach.